So then, it is time for my Premier League predictions for the new season. Of course, it's only right I do this video, as I do every year. I don't even know now, the 5th season I think I've done this video. So yeah, it's definitely becoming a tradition, and it's just probably the most popular football video on YouTube every year this time of year. So let's get straight into it, shall we? If you do enjoy this, please hit the like button, subscribe to Rads if you're new. We hit 6k very recently, which is incredible, but we're not stopping there. We want to try and get to 7k next, so please show your support so we can get there as soon as possible. But let's continue in this video. 20th place, I'm going for Southampton. I do think Southampton actually have a few good players in this team for sure, but looking at how they did last season in the Championship, they were unfortunate not to get into the automatics. It was just such a competitive, particularly top 4 of that division. But if you look at it, they actually conceded a lot of goals for a team that got promoted to 63 goals. They conceded over 5 goals twice. So for a team that went up, their defence wasn't great. And that doesn't really bode well for them in the Premier League, where they're going to be even more exposed, all but certainly. As I have seen my own team firsthand, the difference is insane. Keeping Taylor Harwood-Bellis and Flynn Downs is very big for them. They've also brought back Adam Lallana, very experienced, not long term, but experienced option for them. Ben Bertrand Diaz is coming as well. They've also got Carlos Alcaraz back. Will he stay at the club? Not too sure, but that's basically like a new signing as well. So not bad in terms of business. I think they could do more, and I think genuinely, I don't even think it's a certainty that they come rock bottom. Last year, I was certain that Sheffield United would be last, and they very much were. I don't think it's a certainty that Southampton are, but I am going to put them there. 19th, I've got Leicester. The reason being, I feel immediately going into the season, there is already a very bad vibe, a very toxic atmosphere. That just kind of, it really stinks of relegation, if you ask me. And okay, you could kind of get over that if it wasn't for the looming points deduction. Now, this could drag on for a while. It might be a while before they get this punishment, but you know, whenever they get it, it's surely going to hit them. I've spoken to Leicester fans about the Steve Cooper connection, and they don't seem particularly bothered about his Forest connections. I think it's more just his record in the Premier League wasn't all that convincing with us, and I'm saying that as a Forest fan. I think it's fair to say that. Now, he was only really taking us one way last season if he stayed, and I hate to say that, but I think he was. And I don't think that's really going to help them. I think it's going to be very easy for the fans to turn him for a number of reasons, as said, and a lot of things going against him. Sold their best player, not replaced him, only with an 18-year-old from Chelsea who's only played one senior game ever. Bobby Reed could be a good sign, and they want to get a forward from Leverkusen as well, which would be a very bit of a steal really from Leverkusen. They made an incredible effort at nearly bottling the title last year in the Championship, and I think ever since then there's been a very toxic atmosphere. Obviously Enzo Maresca's gone now, but it still clearly is very apparent, if not worse. Right everyone, so a quick detour from the predictions, because this video is sponsored by Football Prizes. Football Prizes offer you the chance to win some really cool stuff from your football club, in this case Nottingham Forest. They run competitions every week on their website, so plenty of chance to get involved, and this week the Forest draw is a signed, framed Callum Hudson-Odoi shirt. I mean, that would look great on my backdrop, but if you want to potentially get your hands on it, then all you need to do is click the link in the description below. But it isn't just Callum's shirt that's up for grabs, it's also an Ola Aina, Ibrahim Sangara and Anthony Elanga signed shirt in the 17 instant wins available in this competition besides the Hudson-Odoi shirt. This competition runs until Tuesday the 20th of August at 7:30 in the evening, so please make sure you enter the draw before then, and thank you very much to Football Prizes for sponsoring this video and this channel. On with the video. 18th, I'd like to be wrong with this one because it would be a great story, but I'm going to have to say Ipswich Town. And I do not like doing this where I'm predicting all 3 teams that have come up to go down. Ipswich obviously on an unbelievable journey from League One. They were only coming 11th in League One a few seasons ago. Now they're in the Premier League. That jump is gargantuous, if that's a word. I think it is. So it's going to be just the most insane experience for Ipswich, and the feel-good factor is going to be immense, and that is going to get them over the line, I feel, in a lot of games, especially at Portman Road. Some pretty smart signings. They've permanently brought back Amari Hutchinson from Chelsea, Jacob Greaves and Liam Delap coming in from Hull City, who were very good for them last season. They've also brought in Connor Townsend as well as Ben Johnson from West Ham for free. So some decent signs. It kind of feels a little bit like the Luton model last season, signing players to hopefully get them back up again the next season. It might be a case of them being so energetic and going for it. They get a load of injuries, they lose the depth, and they just kind of crash at the end. And I hope I'm wrong, but I feel it's going to happen again. 17th, I've got Brentford. I do feel they will have arguably more quality than some teams that I put above them. They've actually still got a very well-rounded team, but I'm just looking at how they played last season. A lot of the time, they were quite scrappy and really starting to lose their edge, I feel, in the Premier League at times. They were on some really poor runs of form. And yeah, they had injuries at the back. They had Rico Lewis, he plays for Man City, Rico Henry, and Aaron Hickey also being injured at the back, which they were out basically all season, especially Henry. So that was a major blow for them. Obviously, Ivan Toney was missing at times, but when Ivan Toney came back, I don't even think he or they were exactly much better. They've only brought in 2 players as well. A winger from Bruges, only is injured currently, so it'll be a while before you see him. And Fabio Carvalho, I do like that signing. I just feel it's a little bit uneasy at Brentford. I feel they've got a very strong core. Absolutely 100%. I feel they can come genuinely, maybe 3 or 4 places higher. So I'm just saying that now. Maybe I'm being harsh here. 16th, maybe a bit of a bold call, but Wolves. They've now lost their 2 best players, or at the very least their best player in Pedro Neto. They've also lost Kilman at the back, haven't really replaced him as of yet. Neto, I feel they've got Podence and Guedes coming back from their loans. In fact, quite a few players coming back from loans, which could help their squad depth. And I do like Gary O'Neill. I think what he did last season was very impressive, especially when Wolves last season were in a similar, if not worse, predicament that they could be in a relegation scrap. I feel less so this year about that. But I feel last season, a bit like Brentford, the season just kind of really petered out. Maybe I'm being harsh here on Wolves, but it's so difficult, honestly, to predict this area of the table from basically any of the second half of the table. It's so congested. But in 15th, I've got Nottingham Forest. I'm not just being biased. I have seen non-Forest fans put us as high as this. And I could see us being lower, but I could see us being higher. I feel the potential is there for us to have a good season, but I'm not forgetting the issues that we had last season with set pieces, with consistency, with away form. It's still there. It's still something we've got to consider heavily. But we've sorted out the PSR issues, at least for now. Hopefully that doesn't come back. We've made some very smart signings. Elliot Anderson is a player that I am really excited to see. Milenkovic coming in at the back. I love the signing of Moreira as well, a bit of a rogue one, but he looks like a really promising prospect for us. I just think for the first time in an extremely long while, we've kept the core of the squad from the previous year, and I just really hope we don't go crazy in the last few weeks and get into even double figures. We don't need it. We do not need it. We need maybe 2, maybe 3 more signings. I think attack, we still need a few more options. Maybe 1 more defender wouldn't go amiss. But I'm also aware that we are Forest and we can definitely still make things difficult for ourselves, and there are still things we need to address. In 14th place, I've got Fulham, a team that I feel a lot of people have been a bit up and down with where they put them. They put them in a similar position. Some people have put them lower because I feel they kind of clung at the back of a season where they were not really sure who they were. The first season they were very strong European challengers at times. Last season I feel they were painfully inconsistent at times. They beat Man United and Tottenham, but they'll get hammered by Forest, for example. Obviously the better team, but you know, you get the point. I do like the signings of Emile Smith-Rowe and Ryan Sessegnon coming back to the club. I really like that, but they've lost by far their best player in Polinia, and so far haven't replaced him. I know they probably will try and do that, but it's a big hole regardless of who they get, in my opinion. I feel in general, they've got a very, good squad still, a lot of good players in that team, but a fun fact is they've got the smallest squad in the league and also the second oldest squad in the league. I'm not sure if that's anything to be too concerned about. I think definitely in terms of depth. But I also do like Marco Silva a lot still, so I feel he will still 100% keep them genuinely highly competitive. I could see them higher, I could see them lower. I'm really not sure about Fulham. In 13th, I've put Everton. I think this one is a bit of a risk because obviously they could still get a point deduction, and I feel if they get a point deduction, they could definitely come lower regardless of how well they play. And based on the fact that last season without that deduction, they would have probably been consistently around this area of the table, 12th to 14th region, they wouldn't really have been in a relegation concern, in my opinion. They had a really bad run of form the second half of the season, but they ended the season just exceptionally well at Goodison Park. They won the last 5 games, keeping clean sheets, including beating Liverpool. They were outstanding, and you really saw some proper fluidity finally from Everton and consistency. They actually had, shockingly for a team that came 15th, the 4th best defence in the Premier League last season, which is just bizarre. They've also strengthened that by signing Jake O'Brien, a very highly rated Irish centre-back from Lyon. And I also like the signing of Iliman Ndiaye in attack. I feel for years now Everton have been desperately in need of a clinical striker. Obviously they have lost Onana, which is a big blow. They haven't replaced him as of yet. But I just feel Everton do have the potential to have a better season. But I am taking into account they could get a points deduction still. In 12th, now I was going to put this team higher if they hadn't have just lost their best player. Bournemouth, of course, they've just lost Dominic Solanke to Spurs. Yes, they are going to all but certainly replace him. They've got a lot of money for him. If they get Nketiah, who they're being linked with, then that would actually be an excellent replacement. But I still think losing someone as influential as Solanke and as good as him is a big blow. Obviously, Irola was an unknown quantity last season, but got them playing some remarkable stuff at times. They really look like a very good footballing side. They have lost Lloyd Kelly as well, which could be a big blow. But I do like what they've done in the transfer market. Some decent signings there. Maybe they need a bit more. They're definitely going to need to replace Solanke, but for me, they'll be comfortable mid-table. 11th, again, a bit like Bournemouth, if they hadn't had lost or potentially could lose some key players. I was going to put them higher. Crystal Palace, they could still lose Mark Guehi and Joachim Andersen. If they lose both their best centre-backs, then that is quite disastrous, really. And I don't want to start on a negative with Palace, because last season under Glasner, they were outstanding. It's undeniable, right? Obviously, they've lost Marco Elise, but I feel they've replaced him very well with Ismaila Sarr, really good signing. Adam Wharton, Eze, still got Guehi and Anderson, as I say, at the moment. Even Dean Henderson in goal. I really like the look of their squad, and I feel it could definitely do even better than this. I mean, I've got them one place lower currently, but just little things like both of their right backs being 33 plus. Still areas of this squad that I feel are a little bit questionable if Palace really want to kick on. 10th place, Brighton. Maybe a bit of a risk in terms of the fact that they've got a very risky appointment with their manager, who's only ever managed in the Bundesliga 2 for 1 season. Some interesting signings with 2 players coming in for around 30 million each in Mats Wiefer and Minter also coming in from Newcastle, and he was at Feyenoord last season as well. And I feel Wiefer's particularly important. He's had a good season last year in the Eredivisie, which is never always too trustworthy, as I know myself with us signing in midfielder from the Eredivisie. For years now, Brighton have just sold their key players, and they've also been hailed for how they've replaced them with just hidden gems, but eventually those sales, I feel, were always going to catch up on them. I feel Europe last season also was a bit of a distraction, and it was the first time in a while we saw Brighton, the wheels kind of fall off a bit. So it's a bit of a fresh start for them now, and a real kind of unknown quantity potentially. In 9th, we've got Chelsea, obviously just complete and utter chaos. So I could put Chelsea 13th, or I could genuinely put them top 4. I don't even think I'd sound stupid. They could be anywhere. They really could. So I'm going to put them roughly where they've been the last few seasons. They've been around this area of the table. It's just that Pochettino got them up to 6th last season, and then they fired him. I've looked at multiple different websites, and these websites say they've got a different number of goalkeepers every time. They've got about 6 goalkeepers more, probably. I've lost count. They've got 7 centre-backs as well. I mean, why? Unless you're going to play 5 at the back, and I'm talking 5 centre-backs, you don't need 7 centre-backs. I feel Palace, Bournemouth, Brighton are a lot more stable than Chelsea, but Chelsea do have more quality than them, regardless of how many numbers they've got. I think Pedro Neto is a good sign, to be fair, and maybe it was needed, but it's crazy. It is crazy. I just don't know how Chelsea can possibly succeed in this format. I really don't. In 8th place, we've got a club who are being highly ambitious in the transfer market. I've got West Ham. Now, okay, probably because of that ambition, I should put them in the European places. But you've got to bear in mind that they have got a gel. I do feel the last few years have been some of the best years that West Ham have had in a very, very long time. I mean, consistently being in Europe, winning a European trophy. David Moyes had reached his ceiling quite a while ago. The expectation at West Ham was going up and up and up, and he wasn't really meeting it. What they wanted wasn't really in line with what they needed as a manager, and I feel Lopetegui is genuinely a perfect solution to that. He's a much more high-profile manager, no offence to Moyes. But the business, Kilman, who's worked with Lopetegui before, Fulcru, Somerville, Rodriguez, Wan-Bissaka, it's outstanding what West Ham have done. On top of the fact that they've still got the likes of Paqueta, Bowen, Ward-Prowse. I don't really know why I'm not putting them in Europe with that sort of business and with their pedigree of getting into Europe. It's harsh. It's because of the clubs I've got above them. That is purely the only reason that I feel that they should slightly be ahead of them. In 7th, I've got a club that technically aren't in as good as a place as West Ham, but probably do have slightly more quality in Manchester United. Bit like Chelsea, a bit of a circus as ever, but I have to praise them, credit where credit's due. De Ligt, Mazuri, Zirkzee, I really think there's some interesting signings there, and for once actually showing a bit of ambition to actually address their problems. I mean, it's always felt for years now that United have had about 3 centre-backs fit at any one moment, and I think De Ligt is an amazing signing, honestly, getting him from Bayern as well as Mazuri as well, having replaced Wan-Bissaka, and they needed a fullback anyway. I don't even think Ten Hag is particularly an issue. I just feel United are just continuously an absolute mess of a club, and they're going to be the same this season, I'm sure. But the frustrating thing with United, and I couldn't really care less about United in my opinion, they actually can play some very good football, but then they can also look horrendous. So they're just far too inconsistent. They could finish higher for sure, but I feel clubs like Newcastle United are more deserving. No European football for Newcastle this season to distract them. Obviously, they would have wanted to have been in it, and I feel they're unlucky not to be in it. But that could actually really help them. It genuinely could. And I think they could get even higher than 6th. I think they could get 5th or even top 4. I rate them that much. I think Eddie Howe is still an excellent manager. They were inconsistent last season, but they had a lot of injuries to contend with, which is never helpful. And I feel maybe it was just kind of a season of them finding their feet, being in Europe. It's a completely new entity for them. Now they can kind of focus on getting back there, hopefully without as many injuries. Tonight is going to be coming back. They've got, obviously, PSR issues that have been solved. The whole thing with Anderson and Vlachodimos is crazy and amazing from my point of view as a Forest fan. But I do feel still they've got a really good side. They still want to bring in some more players, reportedly. Got to mention Lloyd Kelly coming in as well, and William Osulu. I do feel interesting signing from Sheffield United, probably one of the very few bright sparks in that team. I think they might need a little bit more, but I feel they could genuinely have a good season. 5th place, they have got the distraction of Europe, unlike Newcastle, but I feel they are ahead of Newcastle currently. Aston Villa. Now, Villa have been incredibly ambitious in the transfer market. Onana, Maatsen and Barkley also coming in as well. Obviously, they've lost Douglas Luiz and Diaby, particularly Douglas Luiz is a major loss for them. They wouldn't have planned on losing them. They've bought in 2 Juventus players as well in a swap deal. Thing is though, the expectation is going to go up now at Villa. There's a lot more pressure on them, and I feel last season, as great as they were, second half of the season, they kind of were just stumbling a little bit over the line. They were getting results still, but less convincingly. I feel also there's a lot of pressure on Ollie Watkins still, and maybe they do need to get somebody else in to support him. So I feel Villa look fantastic, and they should relish the European nights, and I feel they could still get top 4, but I also equally feel they could even drop as low as 7th or 8th place, just like Newcastle did. Can they balance the books? 4th place, Tottenham. I do feel last season they were definitely finding their feet under Ange Postecoglou. They've got European football to contend with now, obviously, and that sometimes is an issue, but I feel they'll only be happy to be back in it. Some great signings. They continue to do some really good squad building with this team. Dominic Solanke, Archie Gray, really rate those signings. I think they still need maybe a few more players. They haven't really lost anyone major, minus, well, I wouldn't even call them major, but Emerson Royale and Højbjerg, the only ones that ever really played regularly. Out of the 11 players they've moved on. The only issue I think with Ange, and I do like Ange a lot, is his tactics are a little bit crazy at times, and they don't really get adapted, like continuously playing a high line. This game against Chelsea, I've mentioned it before, it's sometimes really backfired on them. They didn't really have a plan B. I feel top 4 is at least the minimum where they should be getting. In 3rd, we've got Liverpool. Obviously, a bit of an unknown quantity under Arne Slot now, the new manager, replacing a legendary manager in Jurgen Klopp. Only real outgoings are Matip and Carvalho. Not signed anyone yet, which is a bit concerning. They are after a midfielder, and if that deal for Zubimendi broke down, maybe not ideal not having anybody in before the first game. I do feel there will be a period where Liverpool do stutter a bit, where they are finding their feet on slots, but I feel overall they genuinely are still an outside chance for the title. And maybe because of Arsenal, and we'll talk about them in a moment, giving away where I've put them, they could even get second. So I'm kind of saying that Liverpool could maybe be hit by being with a new manager, but I still think they are going to be a really big threat as ever. And of course, I alluded to it there, Arsenal in second place. Now, I do feel that the effects psychologically of them missing out on the title 2 seasons in a row, so close when getting so many points, it's got to hit them. Surely. They've come that close to getting past City and they still haven't done it. But their issue for a long time now has been striker. I just feel they've got Jesus, they've got Nketiah who could be leaving. If he leaves, they're definitely going to need to sign somebody. But even with those two, I feel if you look at City with Haaland, they haven't got that focal point up top. I just feel Arsenal, they've only really signed one player so far in Calafiori. I probably said that slightly wrong, from Bologna, a centre-back. Defence wasn't really the issue. They had an incredibly strong defence last season. Probably just need maybe 1 or 2 more players, in my opinion, to truly give them that chance of getting past City. Because I think if not, I just feel it's going to be a repeat or maybe even regression. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here, but I think Arsenal are still looking really good. And of course, Man City first. It's obvious at this stage. I really don't want it to happen again. I don't really dislike Man City like I do some clubs. But just for the sake of us not being a Farmers League anymore, the Premier League, I just want somebody else to win the title. But City are just that good. Okay, they've lost Alvarez for a lot of money, which wouldn't have probably been in their plans. Only one player coming in so far in Savinho, a bit of an unknown quantity from the French league, a winger, of course. And yeah, I don't really think they need to sign anybody. I think Pep's putting quite a lot of faith in the likes of Oscar Bob and McAtee. So I actually rate that, to be fair, like he did before Foden. City do tend to spend a lot, but the fact that he's giving youth players a chance is good. And it might even be Pep's final season, so you just know they're going to win it even more. If that is the case, it's just a bit boring at this stage. They are my Premier League predictions for the new season. If you agree, disagree, then let me know in the comments below. Please be respectful. Put your comments in the comments, obviously. And yeah, thank you for watching, everybody. Of course, I'll be at the Bournemouth game this weekend, so stay tuned to that. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to be back at proper football. Obviously, I was at the Villarreal game, but yeah, Premier League's where it's at. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe to Rads if you're new, and I'll see you soon.